Benvenute, I'm Patrizia Morgante, the UISG Communications Officer, and welcome to everybody. While we wait for other people coming, because you know Rome, it's always a question mark, so while we wait, I will share with you some concrete instructions. The meeting will be in English and in Italian. Sister Rosemary will speak in English, but people who speak Italian will speak in Italian, and our Mariella will translate into both languages. So when you have the conversation within your language group, you can speak in French and in Spanish, but when you share your short report to the plenary, you have to do it or in English or in Italian, okay? So select one person within the group who might do that. Okay, thank you very much.
Buongiorno a tutte. Good morning, everybody. My name is Sister Pat Murray, and I'm the Executive Director of the International Union of Superiors General, of UISG. I'm from Ireland, and I'm a member of the Institute of the Blessed Virgin Mary. We're often known as Le Suori di Loreto Sisters, in different parts of the world. So it's my great pleasure to welcome you here this morning to this new space which we are using at UISG, and I will say a little bit more about that in a moment. But before we begin, I would like us just to take a moment of quiet and to unite with all the formators in our congregation, in our own congregation, in other congregations throughout the world. I'm particularly conscious of those in formation, the formees, who begin their journey or who are on their journey towards becoming members of our various congregations. Let us pray that the Spirit of God be with them and also with us this morning as we begin our reflection. So let's take a moment of quiet. May God's Spirit bless us and all those we hold in mind this morning. And so let us pray together in our own language, the Our Father. So the executive of UISG, because of a lot of requests from the members, from congregational leaders, decided to look at reusing this space for formation and education, but in a new way. You may know, those of you who are congregational leaders have received a questionnaire asking how we might best use this building. And with the help of some funders, we are equipping this building. And one of the if you like, the new dimensions will be in the lower hall, which will be ready next week. But in the future, we hope to be able to have webinars in 3 languages. In other words, anything that is held here in the center can be translated and streamed to any part of the world. So in other words, that we begin to use this as a hub of formation. So one of the things I would ask you to ask your members, your own members, is to look at the UISG website to see what's on offer and how they might participate in different languages and with translation from different parts of the world. So that's just to give you some background. This conversation, this type of meeting, we have somebody to stimulate our reflection, but the object is that you share with each other in the group and then that we, through our different languages, share the fruits of our conversation with one another. So what Sister Rosemary says this morning hopefully will be a trigger, but you don't have to stay there. You know, you can, if there are other matters that come up in your group, follow them and then share the fruits of that reflection with us so that we learn from each other. And our idea is, in the past, meetings here at UISG were held in one language, in English, or in Spanish and Portuguese, or in Italian, or in French. Now we're trying to cross the languages using this method, where you hear something, it's translated, you share in your own language group, and then we share the fruits with one another, because we're on a journey for ongoing learning, particularly in the area of formation. I would advise, you're all probably aware of the New Wine in New Wineskins, the recent document from the Congregation of Religious, which is now available in most languages, and it's worth reflecting on. Hopefully we will have some initiatives here to help us to reflect on the document. So, buon lavoro a tutti.
Thank you very much, Sister Pat. I want just to add that without her work and of her board, of the UISG board, all this would not be possible. So it's really hard work to create this new center, because, of course, the UISG staff is helping her, but she's the mind and the heart of the UISG. It's time to leave the word to Sister Rosemary. I just want to introduce her briefly, because we don't know a lot about her, but so you can add something. Okay. I'm changing my language. Parlerò in italiano per un momento. Posso chiedere ad Antonietta di portare magari una macchina per la traduttrice anche per la traduzione a Rosemary, per essere sicure. Rosemary è una suora delle School Sister on Notre Dame e in questo momento il suo ruolo è di direttrice di un noviziato della sua congregazione qui a Roma. Quello che abbiamo chiesto a lei è di condividere con noi la sua esperienza. Giustamente è un modello tra i tanti, quindi non stiamo cercando delle soluzioni, stiamo condividendo buone pratiche, stiamo condividendo esperienze, ed è quello che anche farete voi all'interno dei vostri gruppi. Voglio solo aggiungere un'altra cosa, che oggi abbiamo l'onore di avere, oltre a diverse nuove superiore generali e nuove consigliere che sono specialmente benvenute, abbiamo un gruppo di 30 suore salesiane che sono qui a Roma e sono tutte, se non mi sbaglio, formatrici e maestre di novizie, se non mi sbaglio, e sono qui a Roma per un incontro. Questa mattina hanno deciso di sostituire il loro incontro con il nostro. Ecco, io credo che questo non sia importante per la UISG, ma quanto sia importante per ciascuna di noi, perché questa esperienza intercongregazionale e internazionale ci apre veramente a nuove prospettive. Quindi ringrazio particolarmente ciascuna di voi e in particolare Rosemary, alla quale lascio la parola per una piccola introduzione.
Grazie per l'introduzione. Io parlo inglese adesso. As Patricia has said, my role is simply to offer what has been our experience with a congregational novitiate, which is very new for the School Sisters of Notre Dame. So this is what I plan to do. I'll give you a little bit of the history and the motivation of why we have now one congregational novitiate, the kinds of things we did to prepare for it, what we did in the first year, some of the newness of having just one congregational novitiate and some of the challenges that we faced, and some implications or practical considerations, not only for the novitiate, but also for our congregation. And as it has been suggested, when you grow into your table conversations, it's whatever is of interest to you. You don't have to follow what's here, okay? So you'll see a little bit of a theme of new wine and new wineskins, which is related to, I did read the document. I do also agree it's worthwhile having a look at. There are challenges in post-Vatican II. We're not finished with our renewal yet. So our congregation, School Sisters of Notre Dame, we are an international congregation. We were founded in 1833 in Bavaria, Germany, currently serving in 30 countries, and we have one constitution in 11 languages. So multicultural languages and headphones are very familiar in our congregation. I came from our chapter last week where they had 6 different booths of translators going on. So it's very interesting and challenging. So why did we start a congregational novitiate and how it came to be? I thought just to look at our history in the last 20 years. The demographics of our congregation, we were 5,000 sisters 20 years ago. 50 years ago, we were 12,000. So this year, we're 2,500. So you can see the difference in our demographics. That is a big influence. Am I going slowly enough for translators? Yeah? Okay. How many provinces we had? In 1997, we had 21 provinces, 2 regions, and 2 districts. Today, we have 9 provinces. Many congregations are probably familiar with mergers and provinces coming together. We've had a very large amount of that in the last 20 years. That has also influenced our reality. In 1997, we had 8 novitiates. In Europe, we had 6 of our provinces having 1 novitiate in German. And that accounted for many of our, but then there was a Polish, Hungarian, a Czechoslovakian novitiate as well. 1 in South America, 1 in North America, 1 in Africa, and 1 in Japan. That's where our 8 novitiates were. This year we have 1. It's the first time we've tried to have a common novitiate. What we've noticed is that we needed prepared formators. The importance of having formators who were prepared to work in pre-novitiate, novitiate, and post-novitiate, and also sisters in those communities. We weren't always quite on target with that. But that was some of the main motivational factors of how it came to be. So what did we do? The General Council was very much concerned about formation. And they considered, where do we start? And they said, novitiate is the key point of formation. So the council decided, we're going to start with a novitiate, a common novitiate. I thought they'd start with a common final vow program. But they said, no. The most important part of initial formation begins and deepens in the novitiate. So The General Council did consultation with provincial councils and provincial formation teams regarding a congregational novitiate. And that began in 2014. They appointed a novice director, me, and I reviewed all the current provincial novitiate programs. So I read through the novitiate program of 8 of our province novitiates. We drafted a 2-year program for one congregational novitiate. There were a lot of consultations with canon lawyers and with other congregations who had congregational novitiates or regional novitiates, or those who had an interest. We invited them to our generalate one day, and we had 13 different congregations show up here in Rome. It told us there's interest and possibly need to look at this. And that same year, in 2014, we had our own School Sister International Formation Conference, and at that conference, it was formators and leaders. So often we have meeting of formators without the leaders, or there are leadership conferences without formators. So this was the first time we gathered throughout the whole congregation a meeting of formators and leaders. And it was important to talk about a congregational novitiate with that particular group. Another thing that we did that was very helpful is once we had a draft of a 2-year program, we invited sisters from 5 different parts of our congregation to critique that program. What does it look like from your cultural perspective, from your experience? And then we changed considerably some of the elements that were in our program. So the voice of formators and leaders came to that meeting. It was just a group of, I think there were 6 that were at that meeting. So from that meeting, we continued to work on the program, and in 2015, finally finished a program for the congregational novitiate. It was reviewed by provincial councils and formators, and finally, at the end of December, there was a final approval by our General Council. So this is the program that we've been living for the last year. It was a lot to prepare for it. Congregational novitiates don't just happen. We received our first novices on the 18th of September last year. I'll tell you where they are now and what we've done to get them there. Are we okay? Is this helpful? Okay. So let me share the window of experience of this first year. The first thing I need to say is that anything new beginnings are always hard work. But one of the scriptural quotations that kept me going was remembering about the cloud by day and the fire by night. For throughout all their journeys, the cloud of the Lord was upon the tabernacle by day, the fire was in it by night, in the sight of all the house of Israel. This has been a work of God. This is not the work of a novice director. Novice director simply accompanies what God is doing in the heart of each woman. And that's hard work too. But I do have a sense in this first year that our companion God was with us on the journey. So one of the things that was important was to name the community that would be with the novices. So we have a novice director, myself, an assistant novice director, Sister Ruth, who's from Poland, and 2 sisters who work part-time in the generalate. Our congregational novitiate is here in Rome, and our generalate is big enough that we have the whole back of the house. So it was convenient that two of the sisters, one of them was already working in the General Aid, and she joins our community then. We range from the ages of 38 to 68. That also was an important factor, because the communities in which the young sisters, the novices, will live in our congregation, it's multi-generational, and we have a large number of sisters that are over 60. And our oldest just celebrated 106 years old the other day, and I played bingo with her. She's doing well. And the 38-year-old, Sister Antoinette, who is from Ghana, she just made her final vows. So I felt it was important to have someone who was very young in the congregation, some middle-aged folks, and I'm the grandmother. And we lived together a very brief time, but it was important to come together to know what's our role and responsibility as a community with the novices. The day of reception, we received 5 novices, one from Germany, one from Ghana, one from Brazil, Nigeria, and Japan. And our novitiate is in English. When the novices, they came as postulants. That's the other thing I need to say. When our General Superior, Mary, welcomed the postulants to the novitiate building, she said to them, in the novitiate, I want you to go deep and go far. And as we all know, novitiate's a privileged time and place to experience in a deeper way God's personal, unconditional love for each one, and to discern God's personal call to each one. Go deep and go far in solitude, prayer, study, reflection. And it was important for each one to know that it takes a conscious effort on the part of each individual novice to live the consecrated life in community and in mission. And the bottom line purpose of a novitiate, aside from what we've already said, it's to enable a life decision for a radical following of Jesus in the spirit of our founders, or founder. So that's the environment that these women were welcomed into. How did we divide up our time for a 2-year novitiate? Knowing that the postulants were coming, and they did not know each other, except 2 of them. The 2 Africans had been in a common postulancy, so they had been together already for 2 years. The other 3 came brand new, without knowing each other. So before we began the canonical time, we felt it was extremely important to have what we call a transition period. And we named that as 7 weeks. Everybody was getting used to speaking English. Everybody was getting used to different ways of being. How do we live interculturally? So we spent time just in transition before we came to the canonical time of the novitiate. We have just finished phase 1. That was 10 months canonical time here in Rome, and I'll explain what we did. Currently, our novices are in phase 2, and they are 7 months back in their home province. It's one thing to have orientation to religious life. It's another thing to live it back in your own reality. Although we're international, we're very provincial. Do you understand what I mean by that? So the novices belong to their province, and they will probably be in their province in terms of service. We are not a missionary congregation that sends sisters from different cultures to other cultures. That's not our norm, although we do some of that. Okay? So that's why it was important for them to go to their home province. They will come back here to Rome for 4 more months to integrate their experience at home with the theory that they learned in phase 1 and do a final discernment with their provincial councils and with me whether they're ready for first profession or not. And then they will return to their home province for profession and the immediate preparation for that. Now, I have to tell you, my novices are not happy with that phase 4. And they are so not happy that they wrote a letter to their provincials and to the General Superior saying, please, can we have profession in Rome? So, I don't know the result of that letter yet, so we'll see. What's written right now is they go back to their home province for profession. So that's what we looked like in August of last year. 9 of us, 4 sisters, 5 novices, from 9 totally different cultures. And we needed to discover who we are as an intercultural faith community of School Sisters of Notre Dame. What was helpful for us, we had a week of facilitation about halfway through the transition period on intercultural living skills. It doesn't come naturally. So we had a workshop on intercultural living skills. It was a bit too long for us for so new a group, but it was important and we learned a lot of skills there. As we lived into that transition period, gradually they learned how to get around in Rome. They needed to know how to get in and out of the city, where to find things. And we have a very big house, so they needed to know how to manipulate and get around in the house as well. How we were going to pray together. I'll mention some other things and the challenges and difficulties later. But by the end of those 7 weeks, the last week was a retreat to prepare them for profession. And we had worked on the rite of profession, their ceremony, before retreat began. So in phase 1, we kind of opened the window into living SSND life and to know what our life and mission was like. Another thing that was really important is that the congregation know what's going on. It's one thing that the novices are all off with this little community, but this is a congregational novitiate, so communication with the congregation was important. And so we decided we'd make 4 newsletters to the congregation. And we did it electronically. We also put it on our congregational website so that every sister knew what was going on in the novitiate. And the sisters would say to me, "Oh, Sister Rosemary, you did such a great job on those newsletters." I said, "I didn't do it. It's the novices' letter to the sisters." So they wrote what was important to them so that the sisters are aware. I got to do the proofreading, not the planning. So what was really important? Classes were important. So we had in-house classes, and the other gift that we have here in Rome, there were 2 other congregations who had novitiates in English, and so we joined with them for some congregational courses, intercongregational courses, like we did the Theology of the Vows with a professor from the Angelicum University, just for us. We had a priest from India who was studying Christology. He was finishing off his studies. He came and did a whole course on Christology for the group of us. So it was geared to the novices. It wasn't so academic, although the academics are important. It's how to process this information as novices, to make it their own. So we were very blessed with the missionary sisters of the Holy Spirit and also the Ursulines of the Roman Union. I need to clarify, their novitiates were European novitiates. They were not congregational, but they were European novitiates in English in Rome. Okay? So I'm delighted to think that UISG is going to focus on formation. We may have more opportunities here. As an Augustinian congregation, and for all of us, I do believe, becoming a community of one mind and one heart was a very important focus. So a lot of community building, community living in faith was important in phase one. Individual accompaniment. I had a weekly conference with each novice. It gave me the opportunity to look into the mind and heart and explore with the novice what was going on in her own life, in her own discernment, in her own coming to understand what it is to live the vowed life. I got a chance to listen to her heart. But the other thing that we had, there was the opportunity for spiritual direction with a religious who's not a school sister of Notre Dame and in the language of the novice. That was one of the most critical pieces for me, was to find spiritual directors in Rome who spoke the language of the novices. Because many of us here understand how hard it is to express what's deepest inside in a language that's not mine. So the novices had the opportunity every 4 to 6 weeks to meet with their spiritual director. We were blessed with several people who were on general councils or lived in general aid communities here in Rome or were professors here in Rome as spiritual directors. And when sometimes the counselor or the spiritual director was outside of Rome, they did it through Skype. So technology is serving us in many ways, and I'll make reference to that again. But having their direction in their own language was important. But the bottom line, again, I emphasize that it was important, although they were a group and they loved being a group, it's everyone had their personal journey, and each one was responsible for fully and freely entering into the process of coming to know Jesus Christ more clearly, more deeply, and be in relationship with him to say, I want to give a radical following of Jesus in the spirit of our foundress, according to our Constitution. So classes for prayer on Christology, classes on our heritage, our charism, our sense of mission, were all important for our classes and based on our Constitution. So what's new? You're probably saying, yeah, we do all that in our novitiate. That's not new. When I spoke to our general chapter last week, I said the biggest newness for us is the times in which we live. This is not the same time as when I entered in the 60s. We can't be doing formation exactly the same way as when each of us entered. The times are new. The urgency of our 21st century is new, and we must respect that. And therefore, the women coming to our congregations today are also new. They come with a global perspective. Given the migration of peoples in our world today, given the women who are coming to us from different cultures, they have, and some of them have had, experiences in other cultures before they even come to us. It's part of their daily life. They've grown up with this. It wasn't my experience. But we need to recognize they come with a different global perspective. And how do we make best use of that? I find that they have an ecological sensitivity that I never had until years later in my religious life. They come with that already. So to have Pope Francis give us Laudato Si, it just fit. They understand that. Evangelium Gaudium, they understood that. They've already had exposure to it. So how do we deal with that? The women are new. The times are new. That's the biggest newness to start with. A deep sense of belonging. 3 of the 5 novices that we had would have had novitiate alone. 1 in Japan, 1 in Germany, 1 in Brazil. The 5 of them now know what it is to have a peer group. They know what it is to be challenged by their own peers. And that's not always easy. But they've also come to appreciate that they belong to an international congregation and a province. So they went back to their home province with a much bigger sense of who we are as an international congregation. The first time I had a felt experience of knowing we belonged, knowing experientially that we were an international congregation was when I went to a general chapter in 1987. These novices are going out knowing and having a felt sense of having talked to their general superior, of interacting with general counselors, with meeting sisters from all over the world when they come to our generalate for meetings. So there are advantages. The other thing, for us, we decided Rome was the place because we don't have a province here. They lived in the generalate, which is an international community in and of itself. So there's no province identity or identification with the novitiate. The council chose a neutral place. So they have, with coming to Rome, a heightened sense as well of the universal church, not just a parish, but a sense of the universal church. Through doing prepared pilgrimages to different places within Rome, they touch the very roots of our faith. They attended the canonization of Mother Teresa of Calcutta. They went to the Mass on February 2nd for Consecrated Life. And they looked around and said, all these women, these men, they're all dedicating their lives to a radical following of Jesus. They had a great sense of they're not alone. They're not the only ones. So a heightened sense of our universal church was a gift. We were able to bring presenters from all over the congregation. And through technology, we had presentations from sisters that were like 85 years old, but they could come and give input to the sisters, to the novices. They did interviews through Skype. They were able to choose any 3 sisters in the entire congregation. What's it like to live the vows? They drafted questions. They chose 3 sisters, and they each did their own individual interviews of what's it like to live the vows. So we use technology quite a bit, just to broaden. They need more than my input, believe me. One more piece of newness for our novitiate was being in Rome. It gave us the proximity to go to visit our heritage places in Germany. Normally, our sisters come for a Jubilee program after 25 years, and they touch the heritage places in Germany. The novices made retreat in the house where our founders welcomed the first novices. That was truly a gift, to drink in the spirit of our founders and to renew our own faith commitments there in that place. Gifts and newness there were. Practical challenges. Let's open that window. Are we okay? All right. Stomach. You know, they say the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Well, the way to a novice's heart is also through the stomach. We had more challenges to discover what we could do. And not everybody can adjust to a Mediterranean Italian diet. Believe me, we had someone who was at the point of being in the hospital. If she had spoken Italian, she would have been in the hospital. But anyway, the doctor said, we'll manage. So don't take anything for granted. Food is an issue. It is solvable, but it takes a little bit of creativity. Level of English. Because our novitiate was in English, we really needed to do more before they came. For at least two of them, we needed a higher level of English, which they didn't have. So the truth is, with one novice, I knew it wasn't going to work. It would be a waste of time because she couldn't get it in English. I actually sent her for 2 months to England for a reinforcement in English before she began the canonical time, and then came back to us. But the good thing was, again with technology, we stayed in touch with her through Skype. And every day in that second month, one novice or one of the sisters would Skype her in the afternoon after her class, so she stayed in touch with the group. So that wasn't in the program. You never know how people are coming. And to say you have to go home just after her provincial council had accepted her for the novitiate, she was prepared in her heart for the novitiate. It was the language that was the difficulty. So when we go back to talk about what do you need to do before novitiate, I'll mention this again. So level of English was diverse. But I would be willing to bet most of us here have lived with people who don't speak your language, or you speak the language of someone else. How often you have to do repetition, speak slowly, be asked again. What did you mean by that? Example. We have a Solidarity Day. So I said to the novices, we just have very simply a bowl of soup and bread. That's what we have for our meal on Solidarity Day. Some of the novices said, only soup and bread. Okay. I had 2 of them that said, oh, we're having soup? Isn't that great? That's not penance. I said, wait a minute. Soup in another culture meant, for them, their concept of soup was fish soup, special dish, special celebration. This was no penance. So whatever language your novitiate is in, you need to clarify. What do you mean by soup? What do you mean by? So it takes time. It slows everything down, which isn't bad in the novitiate. Our program called for ministry opportunities, like 1 day a week to go and be with the poor. My dear sisters, my novices do not speak Italian. That was a big challenge for us. And the first months, I could find nowhere where we could go to be of service to the poor, for that insertion, that touch with the real poor. But there was a blessing. At USMI, Sister Eugenia Bonetti and Sister Monica Chique work with this program, Slaves No More. They gave us 5 Fridays of classes on the reality of human trafficking, particularly as it impacts women here in Rome. And we were blessed because of their orientation. They allowed us to go with the group of religious who go every Saturday to the deportation center out by the Fiumicino for pastoral visits to the women who are at that deportation center. In a sense, they saved the day in terms of some ministry opportunity. And it was heart-wrenching and eye-opening for the novices to realize what these women were going through and the reality of human trafficking here. And our dear Nigerian sister was touched so deeply because 60% of the women that were at that deportation center were from Nigeria, having been trafficked. I don't know what I'll do next time. We'll see what we can do. But ministry opportunities were limited, and that was a challenge. But thanks to Sister Monica, we were all right. So bridging our cultural and linguistic diversity, it's an ongoing challenge. But there's always time to dance our way through a challenge. So when it was time for recreation, especially our African women, they said, we've got to dance. We all learned how to dance. We did a lot of spontaneous games that people created. We did a lot of laughter. Not everything is serious. And we learned that games like Rummy Cube and Uno don't take much language. And we spent a lot of time just having fun, lest you think it was all heavy. Celebrating major feasts, very important for us as religious, but how to decorate appropriately our spaces that fits for the culture of the one celebrating. This was for a Polish celebration. How to prepare for a festive meal and invite the sisters from the general aid community so that it looks like it's really a festive time and keep it simple. How to plan for prayer that's meaningful as well as prayerful when we're doing this in English, but adding pieces of other languages so that it is prayerful and is meaningful. Those are some of the realities that we lived. Can I do just a few more minutes about looking beyond, like look to the future and the congregation? Do you need to stand up? Are you okay? If you need to stand up, just stand up. Just stand up. I'll keep talking if you need to. Go ahead. Here's some practical considerations. So leadership and formators, this is what was helpful for us. What's your motivation for doing it? Is there a need for a congregational novitiate? What's the criteria for acceptance into the novitiate? Is it any different from just a provincial novitiate? Where will your location be if you're doing a congregational one and know why you're doing it? Implications for your pre-novitiate program and your post-novitiate program, if there are any implications. Clarification of roles. Who's doing what? What's your responsibility? And accountability. I give one example. In one congregation where they have a European novitiate, there's one European provincial who's responsible for the novitiate. Okay? In our congregation, we don't have that. I am accountable to each provincial who sends a novice. So I'm accountable for her to communicate with her about her own novice. But my personal accountability of fulfilling this program and making sure I'm okay is my general superior, who happens to live in the house because we're at the general aid. So that works for me. So I'm accountable for me and for the program to the general superior, but I'm accountable to the provincial for her novice. Keep in mind you need sufficient time to study the language if it's needed, and work out where the location for first profession is best for you. For your congregation, for our congregation, we need to keep working on intercultural living skills. So, the question that I asked, do we actively look for opportunities to learn some new skills or practice the ones that we already know for intercultural living? How do we prepare for that? One of the things our General Superior said was, if you do formation well, then you need to also look at ongoing formation. We don't stop formation when we take final vows. So because this is new for us, and we're trying to have a sense of being one congregation in a new way, what would it be like if congregationally we explored the theology of the consecrated life today? It looks different in different cultures, but the theology of it, can we do that together? So what kind of conversations would renew and shape us to keep our wineskins fresh for the new wine of new members? What kind of conversations would renew us? This is all members. And the last one, the formation of our formators. How best can we form our formators for new thinking and new acting? For us, it's as one congregation, or for building intercultural faith communities. And our world needs that sense that we can do this cross-culturally. So in conclusion, I say to the novices, and I say to our congregation, and I invite you to consider this too, as we move into the future, I do believe we need to be contemplative enough to hear what God is asking of us. But then we need to be courageous enough to do whatever God tells us for the building of the reign of God for our time. No one puts new wine in old wineskins. Otherwise, the wine will burst the skins, and the wine is lost, and the skins as well. But one puts new wine into fresh wineskins. If our new members are like new wine for our congregations, then I wonder, how do we make the wineskins fresh to carry us all into the future? Thank you.
Grazie per averci offerto più che risposte delle sfide, delle domande, no? Perché poi siamo tutte molto più abituate alla teologia delle risposte. Ecco, invece forse dobbiamo imparare a stare in questo XXI secolo con questa fatica. Grazie. Volevo dire che noi, Suor Teresa, che è nell'ufficio comunicazione, ha registrato l'introduzione, quindi abbiamo questo strumento che poi condivideremo con voi. e anche se Suor Rosemary ci permetterà, anche la sua presentazione in PowerPoint la potremo condividere con tutte le partecipanti e voi la potrete condividere. Che se abbiamo delle domande che ci servono, come sai quelle domande urgenti, no? Che ci servono per capire bene quello che Suor Rosemary ha condiviso con noi, altrimenti ritagliamo questo spazio successivamente. Non so se avete delle domande urgenti che vi aiutano per la discussione successiva.
Innanzitutto grazie. Non ho capito bene il percorso prima, cioè le novizie che sono arrivate da voi a Roma, che percorso avevano fatto? C'è stato un prenoviziato, c'è stato un aspirandato? Sì, mi chiamo Suor Marvi, sono italiana e sono consigliera generale nella Congregazione delle Suore Francescane dei Poveri.
Sì, in italiano. Sono Yolanda, missionaria clarettiana, e volevo chiedere, per capire bene, il noviziato internazionale è un'alternativa di formazione, cioè nelle province o nei continenti esistono ancora i noviziati e questa è un'alternativa o è un unico noviziato?
My name is Sister Coyte. I'm a Mercy Sister from Ireland. I'm wondering, what was your rationale for having English as your language, given that you're in an Italian environment? And complementary to that, I'd like to know, what is the thinking behind the novices' disquiet about making their professions back in their homeland? Because I think there's a lot involved in that.
Suor Michela delle Suore della Divina Volontà, volevo chiedere, il primo anno, i 9 mesi di quella tappa, è stato un tempo sufficiente per entrare in un dialogo profondo nella cultura perché la novizia possa davvero, cioè, entrare in profondità nella propria cultura, lasciando il fatto di poter fare una scelta profonda di consacrazione? Cioè, quindi noi che le accompagniamo abbiamo sufficientemente tempo per poter fare questa mediazione dentro la propria cultura anche.
Io sono Suor Nadia e sono adoratrice del sangue di Cristo. Avevo 2 domande. Una prima riguarda gli incontri intercongregazionali, le lezioni che offrite alle novizie. Come è nato il processo e quante congregazioni si stanno unendo a questa opportunità? E la seconda domanda riguarda l'impatto che il ritorno delle professe nelle proprie realtà ha, secondo la vostra esperienza, sulla realtà, sulle comunità locali che riaccolgono le novizie, le professe.
I'm Mary Wright from Australia. Rosemary, I'm wondering, in relation to your responsibilities, your accountability to your Superior General and also to the provincials, if you had concerns about the suitability of a novice, seeing the provincials are so far away from the experience, who would have the decision in that? I presume you have a policy on it. Obviously, you still have your 5, so it hasn't become a reality.
Grazie a tutte, lascerei adesso a Rosemary un tempo per rispondere, ma veramente non abbiamo esaurito, abbiamo la seconda poi fase di riflessione.
Okay. The first question about, we do have pre-novitiate program. Every province has an affiliation time, just loose affiliation with the congregation, but we do have a 2-year postulancy live-in program before novitiate, okay? The question about, is the congregational novitiate an alternative or not? It's not an alternative. We have only one at this time. We have not evaluated it. This is our first year doing it. I can tell you that we are going to have a large number of African novices for our next group. And so then the question becomes, do you still have a congregational one for those who are one, and another one where there's a larger group. At this point, we don't have that option. We've said everybody comes to the congregational novitiate. I do know congregations who have continental ones, and I do know that if there's been one novice in another part of the world, they have sent them to one of the other regional or continental novitiates. Why English in our novitiate, and why not Italian? English is becoming more and more our common language in the congregation. Many know English. To spend a lot of time to learn Italian and then to study sufficiently to come to the novitiate in Italian, and then they'll never use Italian again, did not make sense to us. Whereas most people in many parts of our congregation have some English, and so we're building on that. And the question of profession in their home country, the day I explained to the novices the program saying that you will go home to your home province for profession, they said, "What? We're going to bond as a group. We want to be professed as a group." So it's that felt sense of solidarity with each other. But then where is the public witness? So we're in tension over that. I don't know what the decision's going to be. And actually, one of the reasons for having it in the home province, sometimes getting all the legal documentation ready in the home province takes time. Anyway, we went with having your profession in your home province to try it out, and the novices are rebelling, but they'll, as they wrote in their letter, we accept whatever decision is made, which is a good stance. The question, yes, was it sufficient time in the culture to enter fully into the culture? I forget who, did you ask that question? Was it entering into the culture of religious life or entering into the culture back home? Into de la persona.
Okay.
Because we have 2 years of pre-novitiate, we do a lot of personal human development work and sorting out as much as possible motivation for religious life, so that when they come, they've already lived 2 years in community, they have a sense of charism, they have a good base, so that when they come to the novitiate, it's really doing the deeper insertion into themselves. How did we get the intercongregational going? Somebody asked that. Yes, okay. The 2 other communities that I mentioned knew each other and said, why would we do separately what we could do together? And so they just started. And I knew them. Actually, both of them came to the meeting we had at our Generalate when we were questioning whether we were going to do this. And I said, if we come, can we join? And that was no problem. So it was who knows whom. There was nothing official. So we plan it on our own. The 3 of us get together, the 3 novice directors get together. We say, where are we at in our programs? What do we need? We can offer this person, do a workshop on this. Okay, we found somebody to do this. So it was all on our own initiative. The impact of the novices going back to their own reality. In this week, I'm talking to them for the first time. They've been back 2 months, and every 2 months, I will be in touch with them while they're home. So far, so good is what I say. There's a section in the program that says, this is the responsibility of the receiving community. This is what's expected. They have a contact sister in that community to journey with her for integration. So there's a whole section of who does what while they're in that phase at home. Oh, Mary, your question. How could I forget the canonical question? The suitability of who makes the decision if they're ready for vows or not. Part of the program of these 7 months at home is that the provincial council, the provincial leader, in our congregation, provincial leaders make the final decision whether they're accepted or not for vows. The General Superior has nothing to say whether they're accepted for vows. And that's why it's really clear that my accountability is to the provincial for her novice. I don't account to the General Superior for, the issues with the novices. I do that with the provincial leader. And so those 7 months back in the home province gives an opportunity for the provincial council to get to know their own novice a little better. And hopefully, what's in the program is that the council, either technologically or in person, the council meets with the novice before she comes back to Rome, so that the novice and the council have a sense, we've got issues that you got to deal with before we would say yes, or it looks like things are going along fine. So there's a little more communication with the provincial council and the novice and myself before they come back. I think you need a break.
We all need a break. C'è una domanda?
Thank you. Rosemary, could you please comment on evaluation, if there is evaluation on your part, and on the part self-evaluation of the novices, and also the role of the novitiate community in evaluation? Thank you.
Every 3 months, in the time that they're here in the phase 1, every 3 months the novice writes a letter. It's her own awareness of what she's working on, what she's learning. She writes personally to her provincial leader. We talk about that letter. I think it was at the 6-month one, we talked about it, and we both co-signed the letter so that the provincial knows this is what the novice is saying about herself and this is what the director's saying about the novice, and we're in agreement. So there are no surprises. That's one thing for sure. So self-evaluation is ongoing every 3 months. Contact with the provincial for that evaluation, yes. Novitiate community, the other 3 sisters in the community here for the phase 1, they each had a personal encounter with the novice before she left to go for phase 2, just giving feedback, how she experiences her living in community with her. And in phase 2, there's an evaluation at the end of those 7 months that someone, either a provincial councillor or a provincial, goes to that community and does the evaluation with the novice, with the community. So there's lots of evaluation going on all the time. I like to call it reflection on your experience. If we can get rid of this word evaluation, because I don't even like the word. So let's reflect on your experience. What's it been like for you? What have you learned about yourself? What have you learned about community? What has the community learned about itself?
C'è un'altra domanda?
Come avete superato le difficoltà? Oh, scusi.
Prego.
Sì. Come avete superato le difficoltà di ottenere il visto per le candidate per venire a Roma, sapendo che non è facile?
Visas are not an easy task, and it's not impossible. Every year, the visa regulations change, so you need to have someone who is in touch with the Questura to know exactly what they demand, and also the Congregation for Religious, what they demand. We jumped all the hoops, there wasn't a single problem, but you need to know what it is you need and what kind of visa you need. So it'd be very particular. Very particular. but it's possible. We did fine. Thank you. The first question about accompaniment, the time it takes to really trust, you're absolutely right. I do keep contact with the novice while she's in that phase too, so it's not only the contact person in the community, but I've seen that there's a great trust level that has developed. I must be honest and say everybody knew me because I had been the general superior. So there was a little bit of implicit trust. I confess that. But it is truly an issue, and how to really know a woman slowly. It does take time, and so that trust building is absolutely essential. The biggest compliment I can hear from the novices is to say, I feel at home here. If they feel at home, and they're not kind of wondering, can I do this, can I not do that, are they going to scold me for this or that, be yourself. And I need to be myself, and we need to be honest with each other. How many times I had to apologize to the novices. And one of them said, I've never heard somebody, apologize to us in formation. I said, excuse me, we're all human. So trust is basic, really, and it does take time. And they're adjusting to having a different person, but the fact that I keep contact with them in the second phase is a help. The skills and roles for the sisters it's not a formation team, it's a formation community. And that's different. So, as the director, they know that I'm responsible, I walk with them more deeply. The assistant at this time, because we only have 5, I can manage accompanying 5 women. We have a group of 15 that come the next time. We're going to need more people to do the accompaniment and walking with. So we make sure that the sisters in the community have those skills. The assistant director also gives some of the classes, and the biggest compliment they gave to her at the end of this first phase, they called her the angel. She's a good friend to them. They'll tell her things, ordinary things, that they don't bother to tell me. We get to the deeper issues when they're talking with me. But the trust level as sister in community, as friends, as people who are on a journey together, we're all learning. So it's important that the sisters in the community have a sense of, that's my role. We walk with. And you also have a voice at the end of the time to say, these are things that I've noticed about you that I think if I were you, I'd work on, because in community it's so. So it's not an authority role, it's a friend, sister-to-sister role with a little responsibility. Formation for sisters. I lost my third question, I'm sorry. Formations for sisters in the novitiate community, is that when that one was? Are we okay with that? Okay. Resistance of the provinces about having a congregational novitiate. Yes, we had it. And you deal with it and let people say why they don't like it and why they don't want it, and say, yes, I understand, and we're going to try it. There's a certain level of the General Council has the overview of all the novitiates, of all the provinces. Sometimes you have to make a decision that you want to call it an executive decision, and try it. And you have to trust. And you deal with a little bit of the negativity or the resistance that come. And like I said, we've just began this. We haven't even had a chance to evaluate the program, let alone the concept. So we're going to know. I think I learned when I was in Peru, you make the path by walking it. That's what we're doing. And one size doesn't fit all. You just need to try. What's good for you? We're trying, it's good for us so far. The methodology as I understand, in the pre-novitiate, like the postulancy, and in the afterwards, Big emphasis on human development in community. Know yourself, know your God, know your call. If you're feeling good about those, then you say, I think I'm ready for the novitiate. Whatever methodology works, because cultures differ. The important thing is that the woman comes to the novitiate having a good sense of who she is. Not that all her issues are solved, but she knows who she is and has a felt sense that God is calling her. Post-novitiate, we're going to find out. One thing that I think is helpful, we have planned that at the end of phase 3 for us, just before they go home for profession, the temporary professed director comes to Rome and spends some time with us, and there'll be a conversation with the novice, the temporary professed director, and myself. So we share where the woman is at, what she needs, what's next in her personal goals. So we try and make it as much a seamless garment. We also had the postulant directors come before transition started. When the postulants came, the postulant director came. And so the postulant director knows the reality, the group, and again, we had the conversation. Postulant director, postulant, and myself. This is where the woman is at right now. We all have the same information. There's nothing written about her that she doesn't know about. Not fair. Transparency builds trust. So we don't have a special methodology other than, okay? How can we assure the essentials? I can't. Who asked about the essentials? We give the basics, the basic understanding of what it means to live religious life, what it means to take the vows, basic theology of the vows, our charism, what we're about. You give the basic essentials. And then in your conversations, my conversations with the woman, I get to have a sense. Does she really understand what this is about? And you can show, it shows by their living. It's not what they say, it's how they live. And years ago, when I was working in formation in my other life, I always used to say, do I want to live with this woman 20 years from now? I'm making, and she's making, a vowed commitment to the same congregation to follow Jesus Christ in this spirit. Do I see the seeds of the Spirit that I could say, I can hardly wait to live with you 20 years from now? Or have I got questions saying, oh, I sure hope I never have to live with her again? Those are signs. And what are the issues under that they can work on? That's what we're there for. Help them be their best selves. I'm getting, slow down. Go to the questions. I can't assure the essentials. I give them, and whether they take them or not, I don't know. The age, that varies according to our provinces when they take them as postulants. I can say the age from this group, the youngest was 26 and the oldest was 43. And the other 3 were in their 30s. Why 7 months in the province? I worked as a novice director before, and I used to notice that after 6 months in the novitiate, there was major change. Either there was major change to get farther into it, or there were changes saying, I think they want out of it. I think I applied that principle to going home. After a year here in Rome, in the novitiate, to go home for just 2 or 3 months, you can do 2 or 3 months. You can put up with just about anything. It takes time to insert in a pueblo, wherever they're working, in a new environment, for them to really come to understand the people of that place. So we've got teachers. Most of ours are teachers. pastoral worker, a nurse. So it takes time to get into the place where they're going and to really live fully in that community in ministry. So I said at least 6 months, and that's why we put in 7. We're going to see if it's good, bad, or indifferent. I don't know yet. We'll find out. Policies for use of technology. I was nervous as anything about technology before. Writing this program, oh my God, because I'm not that technologically savvy. So I didn't say anything about do bring this, don't bring that. The basic bottom line was, as I talked with the international committee that reviewed the program, what we want the sisters, the novices, to do is to make adult decisions about the use of technology. So some of them brought laptops. One wrote and asked, I have special characters, the novice from Japan. Right, I mean, of course bring it. That's the natural thing to do. Some of them have those little like translations on their phones. Like some of them have these smartphones and have everything on it. And the question came, Sister, when I don't understand just one word in English, sometimes it doesn't, I lose the whole train. Can I bring my phone to class? If you're using it to catch up, to look that up, I said, fine. But make adult decisions. If they're using it too much, then let's talk about it. Because we do contemplative sitting in the morning before classes, and we do examen in the evening, quietly, individually, before the end of the day. Examine yourself. How have you used technology today? They've got to make decisions. I'm only there for 2 years in their life. They got the rest of their life to make adult decisions about. Teach them how to do adult decisions in use of technology. 10 months, is it long enough to go deep and go far? We go as far as we can. They got the rest of their life to keep going. And that's why ongoing formation is so important. It doesn't stop. And you don't do everything in a novitiate. You give a base. We talked about building foundation blocks for your religious life and keep building on it. Don't expect the package deal. Yes, formation. I was a big proponent of formation in your own culture. And they do get lots of it. They just don't get the novitiate. It's a special time apart. And then they go back. So they've got formation, affiliation. For us, it's affiliation, it's postulancy. They come out, they go back in, and they got the rest of their life. Cultural preparation. How do I get to know their cultures? I can't. But one of the things we need to learn to do is to respect the differences and to talk about the differences. So what is it like for you? And it was one of the most fun classes I had with the novices. In our constitution, we have constitution, and then we have what we call a general directory. It's kind of like directory for everybody. We've got one constitution and one common general directory. But every province has what they call a provincial directory. So after we did all the general things, I said, we're getting ready to go back to your province. Take out your provincial directory, because they get the what do you call it? Any communication from their province, they get. Whatever the sisters get, the novices get. So they get their provincial. They know what issues they're dealing with in their province. So what does your province say about what you deal with in your provincial assembly? How do you deal with what you wear in your province? Because we're as diverse as the group of us sitting here. That's the reality. But appreciate the differences. I said, if you learn anything in the novitiate, don't judge and don't compare. Appreciate differences and talk about them. That's how you build unity. That's how you build trust. Intercultural living skills. We knew of a group in Ireland that's their business. They teach intercultural living skills. We had them come for the week. That was very good. I also know that the Divine Word Fathers and the missionaries of the Holy Spirit have people prepared to do that. And they brought together all their formators